Here's my audience. It is not an uncommon occurrence, especially in America, for people to put in the minimal effort and expect the maximum result. This is applicable in several situations, such as a server at work wants to put in the least amount of energy they can in order to make their full pay and their full tips for the day, and for students who want to put in mediocre work for their assignments and expect an A, and is also applicable for employers who want to pay their employees the federal minimum wage so that they can make the maximum profit. This brings us to discuss the topic of whether the federal minimum wage should be raised. In order for America to continue to be a successful and economically powerful country, they need to do something about these very low wages that they have set. These wages need to be raised because they have not taken into account the rates of inflation, the rates of productivity of their workers, or the fact that the workers earning these wages are making below the poverty level. I have researched this topic extensively, and I have looked into both the economic and the individualistic repercussions of raising the minimum wage, and in this situation, America needs to take its citizens into account and do something by raising the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour. Inflation is a very tricky concept to discuss when discussing the economy. Inflation is dealing with the value of a dollar. So in an economy with very high inflation, while you might have several more dollars, the dollar might not be worth its true value. And in an economy with low inflation, the dollar is closer to its true value and it is worth more. It is easy to see that over the years, Congress has passed several bills increasing the minimum wage by dollar value, but is not actually increasing the value of the work because inflation has been rising with it. According to an article by the Economic Policy Institute, the federal minimum wage was at an all-time high for value in 1968 when it was set to $1.60 an hour. If this was taken and adjusted to today's economy and today's inflation rates, people would be making around $11 an hour for minimum wage. If the government truly wanted to treat their citizens fairly and give them a wage that they could actually live on, they would take into account the inflation rates and adjust the minimum wage to do so. While the federal minimum wage has been ignoring or not taking into account the inflation rates, they have also not been taking into account the rates of productivity. Throughout the years, individuals and workers have been creating new techniques, new machines, and new ways of doing things to increase their productivity. And according to the Institute for Research on Labor and Employment, they published an article stating that the work for an hour has doubled since the 1960s. These workers are creating new things and new ways to do things, and they're causing their companies and their countries to become more profitable by increasing the work they're doing and the amount of time. Our government needs to take this into account as well when they are setting these employment rates, because they're not treating their individuals fairly if they aren't paying them for the work that they're actually doing. They should also be more respected because around 58.7% of our workforce, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is made up of minimum wage workers. That means that over half of our population is currently making under the poverty level without any supplemented income. So if they don't have more than one job, or if they don't have a spouse or partner in the home to help them out, or maybe some very supportive parents, or any type of federal aid helping them from month to month, they're making below poverty level and somehow making ends meet. However, if the federal government would simply increase their wages, then they could therefore be earning more money, and they would not have to rely on other people and these federal government agencies to help them. So the government could just rearrange their money, and they would not have to be divvying out money every single month, whether it be Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, or any of those types of things to help supplement for the wages they aren't giving these employees. Taking into account the rates of inflation, the rates of the productivity of the workers increasing, as well as the poverty levels and the separation of federal funds. The government should adjust all of these things before it is too late, because people have been putting in the minimal effort for too long and they're not going to get their maximum efficiency. They need to change things, and they need to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour in order to let these individuals care for themselves and their families more efficiently and effectively.